Before we begin this journey, make sure you subscribe to Unveil Archive and turn on the bell icon. Together, we'll travel across time and oceans to uncover one of humanity's oldest and most haunting mysteries, the story of Atlantis. For over 2,000 years, one legend has refused to sink. It has crossed empires, survived religions, and endured the rise and fall of civilizations. It is the story of a lost world, a great empire swallowed by the sea. Its name has become a symbol of perfection, of mystery, and of downfall. Atlantis. The legend began not in myth, but in philosophy. Around 360 BC, the Greek philosopher Plato wrote two dialogues, Timaeus and Critias. In them, he told a story he claimed came from Egyptian priests. It described a mighty island nation that existed 9,000 years before his time. An empire beyond the Pillars of Heracles, the narrow strait we now call Gibraltar. This island, larger than Libya and Asia combined, was a paradise of prosperity and order. Its people, descended from both gods and men, built magnificent temples of gold and marble. Their capital was a series of concentric rings, alternating land and sea, with a shining temple to Poseidon at its center. Canals connected the city to the ocean, and the streets were lined with palaces, bridges, and towers that glittered in the sun. Atlantis was said to be the most advanced civilization of its age. Its kings ruled with wisdom and justice. Its people lived in harmony with the land and the sea, and for a time, they thrived. But as generations passed, something changed. The divine spark within them faded. Greed replaced wisdom. Pride replaced balance. The Atlanteans, once content with peace, began to hunger for power. Their armies spread across the known world, conquering nations, enslaving others, until at last, they set their eyes upon Athens. And then, as Plato wrote, came the reckoning. The gods, angered by their arrogance, struck them down. In a single day and night of misfortune, violent earthquakes and floods consumed the island. The sea swallowed Atlantis, and it disappeared beneath the waves. That is all the story gives us, a few pages of text. Yet from those few words, an entire world of mystery was born. Scholars debated, explorers searched, and dreamers imagined. Was Atlantis a real place, or a moral allegory, a memory, or a myth? The question has haunted humanity ever since. Plato never said he invented the tale. He claimed it was history passed down through Solon, the great Athenian lawgiver, who learned it from priests in the Egyptian city of Sais. According to them, the story was carved into the walls of their temples. It was not Greek, but far older. That detail changes everything. It suggests that Atlantis was not merely a Greek imagination, but a memory preserved across civilizations. A memory that stretched from Egypt to Greece to us. Across the world, ancient traditions tell of great floods, sunken lands, and forgotten civilizations. In Mesopotamia, the Sumerians wrote of a deluge that destroyed the first kingdoms of men. In India, the Mahabharata and ancient Tamil texts describe lands swallowed by the sea. In Central America, the Maya spoke of islands that drowned when the gods turned the world upside down. In every culture, the same story echoes: a world destroyed, a knowledge lost, a few survivors left to begin again. Could Atlantis be one name for that global memory? Modern science tells us that around 12,000 years ago, at the end of the last ice age, the Earth changed. Glaciers melted. Sea levels rose by more than 100 meters. Entire coastlines vanished. Islands disappeared. Fertile plains became seabeds. What would such a cataclysm look like to those who lived through it? To them, the world itself would seem to sink. Plato's timeline for the fall of Atlantis, about 9,600 BC, matches perfectly with this geological event. Too perfect to dismiss as coincidence. Perhaps Atlantis was not an island in the middle of the Atlantic, but one of the many coastal civilizations erased when the oceans rose. Perhaps the memory of that flood burned so deeply into our collective mind that it became the foundation for myths across the earth. But if Atlantis truly existed, where was it? Through centuries, many have searched. Some placed it near the Azores, a chain of islands rising from the mid-Atlantic ridge, the highest peaks of a drowned continent. Others believed it lay near Spain, or off the coast of Cuba, or even under the ice of Antarctica. Each theory reflects both our imagination and our desire to believe that something magnificent once stood before us, now hidden just beyond reach. In 1513, an Ottoman admiral named Piri Reis drew a map that would puzzle historians for centuries. It depicted the coasts of South America and even the landmass of Antarctica long before either was officially discovered. More astonishingly, it showed Antarctica without its ice, revealing mountains and valleys beneath. Scientists have since confirmed that such an ice-free Antarctica last existed thousands of years ago, long before our civilization. How could a map from the 16th century contain such knowledge? Piri Reis himself wrote that his map was compiled from ancient source charts, some dating back to times long forgotten. Could those maps have been remnants of Atlantean exploration? Plato wrote that the Atlanteans were master navigators who sailed beyond the known world. If their knowledge survived through fragments, copied and recopied across generations, perhaps the memory of their journeys remained hidden within the world's oldest maps. Deep beneath the waves, modern technology has begun to uncover what our ancestors could not see. Sonar scans off the coast of Cuba in 2001 revealed geometric formations over 600 meters below the surface patterns, resembling walls, pyramids, and plazas. The discovery shocked even the scientists who made it. If the structures were man-made, they would date back at least 10,000 years, a time when the seafloor there was dry land. Could this be a fragment of a drowned civilization? Perhaps even a piece of Atlantis itself? The ocean keeps its secrets well. Less than 5% of the seafloor has been explored. We know more about the surface of the moon than we do about the bottom of our own planet. Beneath those dark waters could lie the ruins of entire chapters of human history, cities, temples, and knowledge swallowed and forgotten. Yet clues remain, not only beneath the sea, but in the stones of the lands we can still see. Across continents, the same pattern repeats. The Great Pyramid of Giza, the temples of Angkor, the pyramids of Teotihuacan, and the megaliths of Gunung Padang all align precisely with celestial events, solstices, star risings, and planetary paths. They share the same sacred geometry, the same mathematical proportions, the same cosmic language. Cultures separated by oceans and millennia, built according to the same invisible design. How could that be? Coincidence or connection? Some believe that after the destruction of Atlantis, survivors scattered across the world, carrying fragments of their knowledge. They became the teachers, the bringers of light, remembered later as gods. They passed on their science through myth and symbol, through geometry, through stars, through stone. If that is true, then Atlantis never truly disappeared. It lives on, encoded in our oldest monuments, our oldest myths, and perhaps even in the shape of our own civilizations. Atlantis was more than a place. It was an idea, a reflection of human potential and of human failure, a warning written across time. When knowledge and power grow without wisdom, destruction follows. Plato ended his story not with victory, but with silence. The island sank, and the sea closed over it. The story breaks off mid-sentence, as if swallowed by the same waves that took Atlantis. Perhaps that was deliberate. Perhaps it was meant to remind us that even the greatest civilizations can vanish without a trace. And yet, the legend endured. It survived through the ages, through conquerors and cathedrals, through books and maps and songs. Because deep down, we know that stories like Atlantis are not just myths. They are mirrors. They show us what we are and what we could become. Every age needs its Atlantis. A reminder that progress without humility is ruin, that wisdom is fragile, that the sea always waits. And so, from Plato's pen to our screens, the story continues not as fantasy, but as a question that will never stop echoing. What if the world before ours was greater than we imagine? What if the ruins of Atlantis still lie beneath the waves, waiting for us to remember? Atlantis may have vanished beneath the sea, but its shadow still stretches across the world. From the deserts of Egypt to the jungles of Central America, from the mountains of Indonesia to the plains of China, echoes of its memory seem carved into stone. If Atlantis ever existed, then its traces must remain not as ruins, bearing its name, but as knowledge, design, and memory. The question is not whether it was real, but how much of it survives within us. Long before our written history, someone built monuments that should not have been possible. Megaliths weighing hundreds of tons, cut with surgical precision. Blocks so perfectly joined that a blade of grass cannot fit between them. Stairways leading into the mountains. Cities aligned with the stars. Who taught humanity to build this way? Everywhere we look, the fingerprints are the same. Pyramids in Egypt mirror those in Mexico. Stone temples in Cambodia share the same geometry as those in Peru. Even the builders of Stonehenge followed alignments found in far older structures half a world away. Different peoples, different times, yet one pattern. Could this be coincidence? Or is it the lingering echo of a civilization that once spanned the globe? A forgotten empire, whose wisdom seeded the rise of all the rest. Ancient myths point to such a source. The Sumerians spoke of gods who descended from the sky to teach the arts of civilization. The Egyptians said Thoth brought writing and geometry. The Maya told of Quetzalcoatl, the feathered serpent, who gave them agriculture, astronomy, and law. The Hindus remembered Manu, the great sage who saved mankind from the flood. Different names, different lands. The same story, repeated teachers arriving from the sea, bearing wisdom from a world that no longer exists. Imagine it. The final days of Atlantis. The earth trembling, the sea rising, the sky split by lightning. Amid the chaos, ships flee the doomed island, carrying with them the last fragments of a dying world. Its engineers, its astronomers, its keepers of knowledge. They scatter across the oceans, reaching foreign shores. To the tribes that meet them, they are gods, beings of impossible skill and grace. They teach the stars, the cycles of time, the secrets of stone. And when they are gone, the memory of their coming burns into legend. Over generations, memory becomes myth. Men become gods, but the message remains. In Egypt, that message was called Zep Tepi, the first time. The age when the gods themselves built the great temples and raised the pyramids. Even the ancient Egyptians said those monuments were older than their own civilization, inherited from an age that came before. At the heart of that mystery stands the Great Pyramid of Giza. It is not only the largest stone structure on Earth, it is also the most precise. It faces true north within a fraction of a degree. Its base is perfectly level. Its dimensions encode the size of the planet, the length of the solar year, even the ratio of pi. How could builders of the Bronze Age achieve such perfection? Modern engineers admit that replicating it today would demand technology beyond what was available 4,000 years ago. And yet, not a single inscription within the Great Pyramid tells us who built it or why. It stands mute, a message without a signature. Perhaps that silence is the clue. Maybe the Egyptians did not build it from scratch. Maybe they inherited it, a relic from an earlier civilization whose memory had already faded into myth. If that idea seems impossible, look east to Indonesia, where the site of Gunung Padang rises above the jungle. For decades, it was thought to be a natural hill, but excavations revealed layers upon layers of stone terraces reaching deep underground, some more than 10,000 years old. Beneath them lies a hidden chamber sealed in volcanic rock, older than any known civilization on Earth. Across the ocean, in Mexico, The city of Teotihuacan stretches out like a map of the heavens. Its avenues align with the Pleiades, its pyramids with Orion's belt. In Cambodia, Angkor Wat mirrors the same constellation. Thousands of miles apart, the same stars, the same geometry, the same code. It is as if humanity once spoke a single architectural language, a cosmic grammar linking earth and sky. Could that be the true legacy of Atlantis? If a civilization before the flood mastered the geometry of the cosmos, its survivors might have rebuilt fragments of it wherever they went. That would explain why cultures divided by oceans share the same sacred proportions. They were not copying each other. They were remembering something they had lost. In the Sahara Desert lies another riddle, the Richat structure, also called the Eye of the Sahara. Seen from above, it is a series of concentric rings, perfectly matching Plato's description of Atlantis. Its scale, its orientation, even the mountains to the north resemble the ancient text. Once, the Sahara was not a desert but a green paradise of rivers and lakes. 10,000 years ago, it could have supported life cities, farms, people. Then the climate shifted. The rains stopped. The world changed. Could the Eye of the Sahara be the scar of that change, the remains of a city wiped from memory, its ruins ground into the sand? Everywhere we look, pieces of a puzzle appear, but never the whole picture. In the Bahamas, divers found a line of rectangular stones known as the Bimini Road. In Japan, the Yonaguni Monument rises from the sea, its steps and terraces forming patterns too precise to be natural. Off the coast of Cuba, sonar images reveal what look like city grids buried beneath 600 meters of water. All of them date roughly to the same period, the end of the Ice Age, when the oceans rose and the world we know was born. Something extraordinary happened then, something powerful enough to erase nearly all traces of what came before. Was it nature? A comet impact? A shift of the poles? Or was it, as the myths suggest, the result of humanity's own arrogance, a fall brought on by the misuse of its own knowledge? Plato's warning feels timeless. He wrote that the Atlanteans once lived in balance with the universe, but when they turned that harmony into ambition, the gods withdrew their favor. The world does not punish, it corrects. And when balance is broken, the sea comes to reclaim. Perhaps that is why the legend still haunts us. It is not just a story of a lost land. It is a mirror held up to our own reflection. We, too, have reached a point where our power grows faster than our wisdom. We, too, stand on the edge of forces we barely understand. If Atlantis fell because it forgot humility, then its echo is a warning not of the past, but of the future. Civilization is not a straight path. It rises, falls, and rises again. Each time, fragments survive a word, a symbol, a memory. Each time, we build a little higher, but we never forget completely. Something ancient moves beneath our progress, whispering, reminding. Atlantis may have been the first great experiment. Its ruins may lie beneath the sea, or beneath the sand, or hidden within us. But its echo continues in the symmetry of our temples, the rhythm of our myths, and the longing we feel when we stare into the ocean and wonder what came before us. If we ever uncover the truth, perhaps we will find that Atlantis was not lost at all. Perhaps it was only sleeping, waiting for us to remember who we were before the waves rose. What if the myths of Atlantis were not describing magic, but technology? What if the powers of the gods were the forgotten sciences of an ancient world that once mastered the earth itself? Across every ancient civilization, stories tell of tools and machines beyond explanation. Mirrors that could speak, stones that could move as if weightless, lights that burned without flame. A world of precision and energy that should not have existed thousands of years ago, yet somehow did. Could these have been fragments of a lost technology knowledge once known to Atlantis? Plato wrote that the Atlanteans harnessed the power of nature itself. They built their cities with metals unknown to later ages, including a mysterious red alloy called orichalcum, said to shine like fire. They mined the earth and the mountains, channeled water through concentric canals, and used it for transport, energy, and ceremony. Their architecture was both magnificent and functional, combining geometry, magnetism, and light. Today, when we look at the oldest monuments on Earth, we find evidence of methods that defy simple explanation. The Great Pyramid, with its internal shafts and resonance chambers, seems less like a tomb and more like a machine. Its dimensions are tuned to frequencies found in the Earth itself. Some engineers believe it was designed to resonate to channel sound and vibration, perhaps even energy. Inside its stone corridors, researchers have measured electromagnetic anomalies. Certain chambers amplify sound waves at specific frequencies. The structure's materials, granite, rich in quartz and limestone casing, could generate piezoelectric effects under vibration. Was this intentional? Was the Great Pyramid a kind of power plant, built not for death, but for life? In South America, the same mystery repeats. At Sacsayhuaman, Peru, stones weighing more than 100 tons interlock with impossible precision. No mortar holds them together, yet they fit as if molded. The surfaces are polished, smooth, curved, and fused at the edges. How could this be done with bronze chisels and rope? Even modern machinery would struggle to achieve such seamless joints. Ancient legends of the Andes speak of a sound that could move stones, a tone that made them light. Priests, they say, used trumpets and drums to lift massive blocks into place. Could this be a distorted memory of acoustic levitation, a technique using vibration to reduce weight or even counter gravity? At Baalbek in Lebanon, the same question deepens. There, the Temple of Jupiter rests on 3 stones weighing over 800 tons each. Beneath them lies a single block known as the Stone of the South, more than 1,200 tons. It was cut, moved, and placed before the invention of the wheel. Engineers who study it admit that no crane on Earth today could replicate the feat with ease. How did ancient builders do this? How did they move the immovable? These are not isolated examples. From the trilithon of Stonehenge to the megaliths of Easter Island, from the precise cuts at Pumapunku to the laser-smooth surfaces of Machu Picchu, every ancient site carries a whisper of forgotten mastery. A mastery that hints at science hidden in myth. Many dismiss these as coincidences or exaggerations. But what if they are remnants, the surviving pieces of a global technology that Atlantis once perfected? Consider the strange stories told by ancient texts. The Indian Vedas describe flying machines called vimanas, powered by mercury and sound. The Egyptians carved images of objects resembling light bulbs and gliders. In Greece, myths spoke of mechanical birds, golden automatons, and self-moving ships. Even the Bible mentions the Ark of the Covenant, emitting light and power strong enough to kill a man who touched it. Different cultures. Same theme. The harnessing of forces that today we call electricity, magnetism, resonance, and plasma. Perhaps what the ancients called divine power was simply science, a science that was lost when the world drowned. What if the Atlanteans mastered the principles of frequency, vibration, and geometry, the true foundations of all energy? Nikola Tesla once said, "If you want to understand the universe, think in terms of energy, frequency, and vibration." Was he rediscovering what Atlantis once knew? The ancients built everything upon these principles. Their monuments were not random piles of stone. They were harmonic structures, instruments of the earth. Many were aligned with telluric currents, the invisible energy lines that flow through the planet. Pyramids, obelisks, and megaliths may have acted as nodes in a global network, tuning into the planet's resonance like antennas. If Atlantis had such knowledge, it would explain their legendary feats. They could draw energy directly from the environment, not through combustion, but through vibration and field manipulation, clean, limitless, and natural. But such power, if misused, could also destroy. A single imbalance could shake the earth itself. That is exactly what Plato described: earthquakes and floods that consumed the island in one night. Perhaps their greatest technology became their downfall. Perhaps the same energy that sustained them tore their world apart. When the survivors scattered, they could no longer recreate what was lost. They remembered only fragments, symbols, rituals, alignments. Over centuries, these became religion and myth. The knowledge turned sacred. The science turned to legend. Yet traces of their understanding remain hidden in plain sight. The golden ratio appears in the design of temples, cathedrals, and ancient monuments. Pi and Phi are found in structures built thousands of years apart, by cultures with no contact. The pyramids of Giza, Stonehenge, and Teotihuacan all encode the same mathematical constants, as if humanity once shared a forgotten code, a cosmic fingerprint left by Atlantis. Even our modern technology may be rediscovering what they knew. Resonant frequencies can move objects. Acoustic levitation can make stones float. Quartz crystals can store and amplify energy. Light can create pressure. Sound can sculpt matter. Everything in the universe vibrates, and if you can control vibration, you can control reality. To the Atlanteans, this was not theory. It was art. It was life. And when that knowledge vanished, the world fell into darkness. But darkness cannot last forever. Knowledge, like light, finds a way to return. Across ages, fragments of Atlantis rose again in Sumer, in Egypt, in Greece, in the Renaissance. Each rediscovery pushed humanity closer to remembering. We see it in Da Vinci's designs, in Tesla's experiments, in our satellites that map the heavens, echoes of an ancient dream that once reached perfection. Perhaps the reason Atlantis haunts us is because it is not truly lost. Its memory lives in our curiosity, our innovation, our endless drive to uncover what lies beyond. The same desire that once built a golden island now sends probes to the stars. The same spark that lit the temples of Poseidon now glows in our cities at night. We are Atlantis reborn, still reaching, still learning, still walking the edge between creation and destruction. But the lesson remains. Knowledge without wisdom leads only to ruin. The sea that once rose may rise again. The flood may not be of water, but of consequence. Atlantis is more than history. It is prophecy. It reminds us that the higher we climb, the deeper the ocean below us waits. If we can learn from its fall, perhaps we can prevent our own. Every legend hides a warning, and every empire carries within it the seed of its own destruction. Atlantis, at its height, was said to be the most advanced civilization the world had ever seen. Its cities shimmered with light. Its people mastered science, architecture, and the forces of nature. Yet the same brilliance that lifted them beyond the world also blinded them to the one truth that sustains every civilization balance. In the beginning, they lived in harmony with the laws of the earth. Their technology followed the rhythm of nature. Their temples were built on sacred geometry, aligning with the stars, the tides, and the heartbeat of the planet. But as centuries passed, ambition replaced wisdom, power became the new god, and greed the new prayer. Plato wrote that when the divine portion of their nature began to fade, human desire took its place. They no longer remembered where their gifts came from. They used their knowledge not to preserve the world, but to conquer it. The kings of Atlantis expanded their reach across the seas. Their fleets, vast and unstoppable, ruled every ocean. They built colonies on distant shores and demanded tribute from nations far away. What had once been a union of harmony turned into an empire of domination. They enslaved those they once called brothers and turned their sacred sciences into weapons. It is said that Atlantis possessed crystals capable of focusing immense energy, the same energy that once powered their cities and healed their people. In their arrogance, they learned to weaponize it. The seas themselves became tools of war. The skies were no longer sacred. They were battlefields. With every victory, they lost a piece of their soul. Their temples, once places of wisdom, became monuments to pride. Gold covered their walls, but emptiness filled their hearts. The gods, as Plato wrote, watched in silence, patient but not blind. In time, corruption reached the throne. The kings of Atlantis turned against each other. Brother fought brother, city against city, until the empire began to fracture from within. The harmony that had once held them together was gone. The very energy that had sustained their civilization now trembled out of control. Priests and scientists warned of imbalance. They spoke of storms gathering, of tremors beneath the sea, of omens in the stars. But no one listened. Power had made them deaf. The leaders dismissed every sign as superstition, refusing to believe their perfect world could fall. Then came the day the earth rebelled. The ground shook. The oceans boiled. Thunder split the sky. The sun dimmed behind a wall of clouds, and lightning carved fire into the sea. In that moment, nature itself seemed to turn against its children. Plato's words still echo through time. After this, there occurred violent earthquakes and floods, and in a single day and night of misfortune, the island of Atlantis disappeared into the depths of the sea. Imagine that night, an empire of marble and crystal sinking into chaos. Towers collapsing. Waves rising like mountains. The cries of thousands swallowed by wind and water. In hours, a civilization that had lasted for millennia was gone. Its cities became reefs. Its lights turned to darkness. Its name became myth. But perhaps not all perished. Legends across the world tell of survivors, sages, who fled across the oceans before the final wave struck. They carried with them sacred knowledge, symbols, and fragments of their language. Some landed in Egypt, others in Mesopotamia, India, and the Americas. They became the teachers of gods, the keepers of time, the founders of civilization. To the people who met them, they were divine. To themselves, they were refugees, bearers of memory from a drowned world. If these survivors existed, they may have been the bridge between ages, the link between the world before and the world after. They may have planted the seeds of all we call ancient, the calendars, the pyramids, the constellations, the sacred numbers. But the trauma of their loss followed them. They built in stone so it would never be forgotten again. They carved warnings into myths, encoding lessons into religion and legend. The flood stories of every culture may not simply describe disaster, but remembrance, the promise that such arrogance must never return. Yet history shows how easily humanity forgets. The Atlanteans believed they were invincible. So did the pharaohs. So did the Romans. So did we. Every empire that rises begins as vision and ends as pride. Every power built without balance meets the same sea. Perhaps that is why Atlantis endures not as a place, but as a mirror. Every time we look upon its legend, we see ourselves reflected in its water. The same ambition, the same brilliance, the same blindness. And perhaps that is why the ocean took it. Because what humanity will not humble, the earth eventually will. Some say the fall of Atlantis was natural, a comet impact, a volcanic chain reaction, a sudden shift of the poles. Others believe it was self-inflicted, an energy surge that spiraled beyond control. Both may be true. For nature and human folly often dance together, each feeding the other until the music ends. The flood that consumed Atlantis reshaped the world. The sea rose over coastlines, erasing entire lands. The memory of that night passed from generation to generation. A myth of gods, a punishment, a cleansing. But behind every myth, there is a shadow of truth. And if we strip away the symbols, what remains is a pattern creation. Expansion, corruption, collapse. The same rhythm that has played out countless times. From the first spark of civilization to our own age of steel and silicon. We build towers that reach the clouds, forgetting that the higher they rise, the longer their shadows grow. We extract the heart of the planet, command its energy, divide its atoms, and call it progress. We tell ourselves we are different, that this time we are safe, that the sea will never rise again, but the sea remembers. The ruins of Atlantis may sleep beneath miles of water, but the story it left behind still breathes. It warns us that knowledge without humility is fire without light, that technology without conscience becomes a storm, that every empire that forgets balance will one day hear the same sound, the roar of the ocean reclaiming its due. And yet, even in destruction, there is a strange kind of grace. Because Atlantis did not vanish completely, its light scattered into the souls of those who survived and into us. The story of its fall is also the story of our beginning. We are the children of its lesson. The sea may have taken their cities, but it could not drown their memory. It lives in every question we ask, in every mystery we chase, in every attempt to build something that lasts. The echo of Atlantis is the echo of humanity, the eternal desire to rise, to learn, to reach for the divine, even at the risk of falling. Atlantis was not just an empire beneath the waves. It was a reflection of the human spirit, magnificent, flawed, and unending. Perhaps the gods did not destroy it in anger, but in mercy, to give the world a chance to begin again. And perhaps the next time we rise, we will finally learn what Atlantis could not. For thousands of years, the story of Atlantis has lived not only in books and myths, but in the hearts of those who refuse to let it go. Explorers, scientists, mystics, and dreamers all have searched the seas, convinced that somewhere, beneath the rolling waves, lies proof of the world that once was. Every generation has carried the same question. Was Atlantis real? The search began with a map and a compass, but it became a mirror of the human spirit. Our hunger for discovery, our need to understand where we came from, and perhaps what we lost. Plato gave only a few clues. He wrote that Atlantis lay beyond the Pillars of Heracles, the ancient name for the Strait of Gibraltar, that it was larger than Libya and Asia combined, that it fell beneath the sea in a single night. From those few sentences, the greatest treasure hunt in history was born. In the age of exploration, when ships first crossed the Atlantic, every new island seemed a possible remnant of Atlantis. Sailors told stories of golden cities beneath the waves, of strange lights rising from the deep. Spanish conquistadors claimed the Aztecs spoke of a motherland across the ocean. Aztlan, the land of their ancestors. The name itself sounded like Atlantis. In the Renaissance, scholars scoured ancient texts for hidden meaning. Some said Atlantis was in the Atlantic Ocean, others in the Caribbean, or even under the ice of Antarctica. The further knowledge advanced, the deeper the mystery grew. In the 19th century, new discoveries seemed to breathe life into the legend. When explorers uncovered the ruins of Troy, long thought to be pure myth, the impossible suddenly became possible. If Troy was real, why not Atlantis? Then came the discoveries of Crete and the Minoan civilization, whose palaces and frescoes revealed a people who once dominated the seas, brilliant engineers and traders whose culture vanished after a massive volcanic eruption on the island of Thera, now known as Santorini. For some, that was the answer. Atlantis was not in the Atlantic, but in the Aegean. The eruption of Thera around 1600 BC caused tsunamis, ash clouds, and destruction across the Mediterranean. It was the perfect inspiration for Plato's tale. But there was a problem. Plato placed Atlantis 9,000 years before his time, far older than any known civilization. The Minoans, as advanced as they were, lived only 4,000 years ago. If Plato's numbers were symbolic, the Thera theory made sense. But if they were literal, then Atlantis belonged to a world far older, a prehistoric age erased by the end of the Ice Age. That question split the search in two. Some looked for Atlantis within recorded history. Others searched for it before history began. In 1872, the American congressman and writer Ignatius Donnelly published Atlantis, the Antediluvian World, arguing that all ancient civilizations, Egypt, Mesopotamia, the Americas descended from one common source: Atlantis. His book became a sensation, inspiring generations of explorers. For the first time, Atlantis was not just a legend. It was a lost chapter of human history waiting to be found. Throughout the 20th century, the search moved from libraries to laboratories, from myth to science. Oceanographers mapped the seafloor, revealing mountain ranges, trenches, and plateaus hidden beneath the Atlantic. Among them lay the Mid-Atlantic Ridge, a massive underwater mountain chain stretching from the Arctic to the Antarctic. Some claimed this ridge was the sunken spine of Atlantis. In 1948, sonar scans revealed strange formations off the Azores, a group of volcanic islands, almost exactly where Plato placed Atlantis. The island's peaks rise from a submerged plateau that once may have stood above sea level. Could these be the mountaintops of a drowned continent? Then, in the 1,960 seconds, divers near Bimini, in the Bahamas, found a long line of rectangular stones, arranged like a road or wall. The Bimini Road, as it came to be called, lies just 12 meters below the surface, perfectly straight and composed of huge blocks. Some scientists dismissed it as a natural formation, but others were not so sure. The discovery coincided eerily with a prediction made by the famous psychic Edgar Cayce decades earlier, who claimed that remnants of Atlantis would be found near Bimini in the late 1,960 seconds. Skeptics laughed, but believers saw prophecy fulfilled. In 2001, a team of Canadian engineers using sonar off the coast of Cuba made one of the most stunning finds, yet a vast complex of geometric structures, nearly 600 meters underwater. The images showed what looked like pyramids, streets, and plazas arranged in patterns too deliberate to be natural. If true, the site would be at least 10,000 years old, far older than any known civilization. Yet, the depth of the ruins makes exploration nearly impossible. To this day, the Cuban underwater city remains one of archaeology's most controversial enigmas. Each discovery brings more questions than answers. Each clue pulls the story further from myth, yet never fully into fact. The search has expanded beyond the Atlantic. Some researchers point to Antarctica, whose ice conceals mountain ranges, valleys, and even traces of ancient riverbeds. Satellite radar has revealed anomalies that some interpret as structures. Could a polar shift have moved Atlantis from temperate latitudes to the frozen south? Others turn their eyes to the Sahara. The Richat structure, a massive circular formation in Mauritania, known as the Eye of the Sahara, matches Plato's description almost perfectly. Concentric rings of land and water, surrounded by mountains to the north, open to the sea to the south. Once, the region was lush and fertile. Rivers flowed where now only sand remains. Could this have been the true Atlantis, not beneath the sea but buried beneath time? To most scientists, the idea seems impossible. Yet the precision of the match, the size, the geology, the direction of the channels keeps the question alive. Modern technology has given us new tools to look for old worlds. Submarine drones, satellite imaging, and ground-penetrating radar now reveal secrets once thought unreachable. In the Atlantic, researchers have found evidence of massive underwater landslides and collapsed plateaus that may once have been dry land. In the Mediterranean, sonar mapping near Malta, Crete, and Santorini has revealed submerged temples and walls. Each fragment deepens the mystery. Every new discovery reminds us that our planet still hides more history than we have uncovered. For many, the search for Atlantis is not just a hunt for ruins. It is a quest for identity. To find Atlantis is to find the origin of civilization itself. If such a world truly existed, it would rewrite our understanding of human history, proving that the story of progress is not a straight line, but a cycle of rise, fall, and rebirth. Others see the legend as a mirror, not a literal place, but a reflection of the eternal struggle between wisdom and ambition. They argue that Atlantis is everywhere and nowhere, a parable written into the ocean to remind us that perfection cannot exist without humility. Yet the search continues, because the human heart cannot resist the unknown. Even in the age of satellites, there is something sacred about mystery. The possibility that, beneath the endless blue, lies the memory of a civilization that once mastered the world and lost it in a single night. Every expedition, every dive, every sonar scan is an act of faith, faith that truth still sleeps below the surface. Perhaps one day, the sea will give it back. Until then, Atlantis remains half science, half dream, suspended between history and myth, waiting for the moment when the waves part and the truth finally rises. Atlantis is more than a legend of a lost island. It is an inheritance, a story that has shaped how we see ourselves, what we build, and what we believe. Though its stones may sleep beneath the sea, its idea still rules the world above it. Every age has found its own reflection in the myth of Atlantis. To the philosophers of Greece, it was a moral allegory, a warning against arrogance and excess. To the explorers of the Renaissance, it was a promise, a lost paradise, waiting to be found beyond the horizon. To scientists and dreamers of the modern world, it has become something else entirely. A symbol of human potential, of everything we could achieve if we learned from the past instead of repeating it. The story survived because it speaks to something eternal in us, the desire to reach perfection and the fear of losing it. Plato's tales spread across centuries, like a current, carried by poets, priests, and kings. It shaped the imagination of entire civilizations. When Europe rose from the Middle Ages, Atlantis became a metaphor for discovery. The voyages of Columbus, Magellan, and Vespucci were not only driven by gold and empire, but by the dream that beyond the edge of the world lay the remnants of something greater. Maps of the 15th and 16th centuries marked the Atlantic with inscriptions. Here once was Atlantis. Maps. The New World was seen as its resurrection. The idea of a hidden continent of enlightenment inspired visionaries from Francis Bacon to Thomas More. In Bacon's New Atlantis, the lost island became a utopia, a place where science and spirit worked together, where knowledge served the good of all. That dream would echo through the centuries, influencing the birth of modern science, the Enlightenment, and even the founding ideals of nations built on reason and exploration. But the legacy of Atlantis is not only philosophical, it is architectural. Across continents, from the domes of Europe to the stepped pyramids of the Americas, we find the same geometric perfection, the same pursuit of balance and harmony that the legend describes. The Atlantean ideal, whether real or imagined, became the invisible blueprint for how humanity defines beauty. Even our symbols carry its echo. The pyramid on our money, the concentric rings of urban design, the compass and square of the builders' guilds, all trace back to a memory older than history. The belief that structure, proportion, and knowledge can bring us closer to the divine. Atlantis became the original archetype of the advanced civilization, the prototype for every myth of golden ages and cosmic teachers that followed. The Egyptians had Zep-Tepi, the Sumerians had Dilmun, the Hindus had the city of Dwarka, the Mayans had Aztlan. All tell the same story. A world before this one, destroyed by its own imbalance, remembered through symbols. And as those symbols spread, Atlantis became not just the origin of civilization, but the foundation of mystery itself. In the 19th and early 20th centuries, the legend was reborn in the language of science and mysticism. Theosophists claimed Atlantis was the cradle of human evolution, the place where the first great race learned to harness psychic power and energy. Writers like Helena Blavatsky and Edgar Cayce described it as the home of ancient technologies and forgotten wisdom. For them, Atlantis was not only a ruin, but a spiritual homeland, a lost vibration of consciousness waiting to return. Even as science advanced and skepticism grew, the myth adapted. In the age of electricity, Atlantis became a symbol of limitless power. In the atomic age, It became a warning about self-destruction. Each generation rewrote the story in its own image. Yet at its heart, it remained the same: the dream of perfection, the fall of pride, and the promise of rebirth. Atlantis influenced art, architecture, religion, and politics. It gave rise to visions of utopia and fears of apocalypse. Writers, painters, and filmmakers continue to resurrect it, again and again, because it speaks to the most human of questions. What happens when knowledge outgrows wisdom? Perhaps the most fascinating part of its legacy is how it still hides in our language and thought. We call great disasters Atlantean. We describe sunken truths as lost cities. When scientists search for extraterrestrial life or lost civilizations on Mars, they are, in spirit, continuing the same quest that began with Plato's dialogues. Atlantis is not just a place we search for, it is a question we never stop asking. And that question has shaped more than our imagination. It has shaped our destiny. The dream of Atlantis gave birth to exploration, discovery, and science itself. It made us look beyond the known, across oceans, and into the stars. It made us believe that the unknown is not to be feared, but found. It turned curiosity into courage. Yet every dream carries its shadow. The same thirst for knowledge that drives progress can also summon ruin. The story of Atlantis teaches that the higher we build, the deeper we must remember our roots. Technology without compassion becomes tyranny. Power without purpose becomes decay. That may be why the legend endures. Because we need it. Because every age, no matter how modern, carries the same flaw: the belief that it cannot fall. Atlantis reminds us that the sea never forgets, that wisdom must walk beside power, or the tide will rise again. In a way, we are still living its legacy. Our world mirrors its perfection and its peril. We command energies the ancients could only dream of. We build cities of glass and light, visible from space. We reach into the heavens, split the atom, and reshape the planet itself. We are the new Atlanteans, standing at the edge of the same abyss. The lesson of Atlantis is not to fear greatness, but to balance it with humility. To remember that all knowledge, however vast, begins and ends with respect for the forces that sustain us. To understand that civilization is not measured by what it builds, but by what it preserves. The true legacy of Atlantis is not its destruction, but its rebirth in every civilization that rises from the ashes of the last. Every time humanity rebuilds, the spirit of Atlantis lives again. Perhaps it was never lost. Perhaps it became us. And if that is true, then the story has no ending. It is still being written in our hands, our cities, our dreams. Atlantis was not a city. It was a cycle, and it will rise, as it always does. From the waves of time, the sea is ancient, older than the mountains, older than the wind. It remembers everything, every rise, every fall, every voice that ever whispered across its surface. When we look out at it, we are not looking at emptiness. We are looking into memory. Somewhere beneath those shifting waters, the story of Atlantis still sleeps, not as ruins or treasure, but as silence. A silence that carries weight, a silence that speaks. The ocean is not a grave, it is a mirror, and if we listen long enough, we might hear it breathing. For centuries, humankind has tried to break that silence. We've sailed its endless blue, mapped its depths, sent machines to crawl across its floor. Every dive is an act of hope. Every sonar ping, a question flung into eternity. Where are you? Were you ever there? Did you fall? Or did you simply become the sea itself? Perhaps the answer has always been in the sound of the waves. They rise, they fall, they crash, they fade like civilizations. Like us, the myth of Atlantis endures because it is not only about the past, it is about the rhythm of creation and destruction that defines existence. The waves come and go. The tides rise and recede. The world forgets and remembers. Every time we build a city, we echo that forgotten empire. Every time we lose one, the ocean takes it back. The divers who descend into the dark say that the sea has its own language. The pressure hums. The currents whisper. The sound of one's own heartbeat becomes the pulse of the world. Down there, in the eternal twilight, time disappears. And for a moment, it's easy to believe that maybe, just maybe, something still waits. A shape beneath the sediment. A wall. A road. A memory. Atlantis may never be found, because it was never truly lost. Its ruins may lie beneath coral and stone, but its essence is everywhere. In the symmetry of our cities, in the hum of our machines, in the light of our ambition. It lives in our questions, in our art, in our endless hunger to know what came before. The search for Atlantis is the search for ourselves. When Plato wrote of its fall, he ended not with answers, but with silence. The text breaks off mid-sentence, the dialogue unfinished. It was as if even he knew that the story was not meant to end, that it would echo on through time, reshaping itself with every generation that dared to ask, what if? We build rockets now, instead of ships. We sail the stars instead of the seas. But the same longing guides us to explore, to understand, to find what has been hidden. And somewhere, in that pursuit, the spirit of Atlantis lives again. The empire beneath the waves was never destroyed. It was transformed. It became the spark in every human mind that refuses to stop dreaming. Atlantis is the sound of curiosity, the pulse of memory, the mirror of our potential. And though the sea keeps its secrets, the truth will always find a way to rise, just as land once rose from the deep, and as every lost light eventually finds the surface again. One day, the waves will part, and whether we stand before ruins or revelations, we will understand at last that the story was never about what sank. It was about what survived, because Atlantis is not beneath the ocean. It is beneath us, in the depths of our memory, in the heart of our imagination, in the unending rhythm of rise and fall that defines who we are. The sea holds the body of the world, but we carry its soul. And perhaps that is the final truth, that what we call myth is not a lie but a reflection, that Atlantis never left us. We simply forgot how to see it. So when you hear the ocean, listen closely. Beneath the crash of waves and the pull of the tide, there is a whisper older than language, softer than light. A whisper that says, remember. Remember what was lost. Remember what must never be lost again. And if you ever find yourself standing at the edge of the world, staring into the endless blue, know this: Atlantis is still there, not waiting to be discovered, but waiting to be understood. Because the empire beneath the waves is not a place. It is a lesson. It is us. So, as our journey through time and tide draws to a close, take this with you. Every myth begins in truth. Every truth begins in silence. And from that silence, the voice of Atlantis still rises. Thank you for joining this exploration. If you wish to continue uncovering the forgotten stories of our world, subscribe to Unveil Archive and keep your eyes open to the mysteries that surround us. The journey has only just begun.